Hello guys, welcome to another session. So here in this video, we are going to talk about positivism and its critique, a very important topic. So you'll see alternate years, they'll ask you questions from positivism or non-positivism. So there's a sure shoot question. There are years in which they have asked both positivism and non-positivism in the same year. See, one thing that I want to tell you is any question from your first three chapters, you start with the emergence of sociology in one line. So you will be writing sociology emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. There you're talking about medieval Europe, you're talking about modernity, the challenges and distinct discipline and everything. So sociology emerged as a distinct discipline, before the challenges posed by modernity in medieval Europe. So that's how you will be starting with. And then you will talk about its development and you will be talking about various approaches which has been used by the initial sociologists. They wanted to make it similar to natural science. So positivism was the initial approach that they followed, right? So then you talk about what are the main elements of positivism, right? So here we will be talking about initial approach, that is about macro study, scientific study. They focus on external realities. I'll be detailing in this later, but here let me go through the summary of what I'm going to discuss. So positivism, when we talk about, it's about studying external reality. It's about studying phenomena by using scientific methodology, right? We need to talk about examples also. And it's about establishment of cause and effect, correct? And then it's about developing inductive theories you need to make, but it has to be inductive theories, and not only theories, it need to be testable and there should be predictability and all those. So these are elements that we need to discuss when we talk about positivism, correct? And the similar elements is what we discussed when we talked about sociology as science also. So I repeat, study of external reality, scientific methods you need to use, establish cause and effect, and use inductive theories, predictability, testing. Perfect. Now, see, guys, whenever you get a question on positivism, towards the end, you will be also talking about non-positivism. There are limitations for positivism that led to non-positivism, and you briefly mentioned about that. Similarly, if the question is asked on non-positivism, you first talk about positivism and its limitation, the critique, and then go to non-positivism. In between, you will be talking about Weber, who have bridged the gap between positivism and non-positivism. That's how you need to proceed. So, question on non-positivism, start with positivism, talk about critique, and go to non-positivism and ethnomethodology, phenomenology, etc. Question on positivism, start with the emergence of sociology, initial approach, positivism, elements, critique, briefly mention about non-positivism. Okay, so that's how we need to proceed, and I hope you got some idea. So let's start today's session. See what the introduction that you can give. Positivism as a perspective was one of the initial attempt to understand the social world in a systematic manner. So, see, in sociology, when we talk about positivism during 19th century, had an overwhelming influence of natural science, right? Because initial sociologists wanted to make sociology similar to natural science, and they wanted to study society and or this discipline, they want to make it like a study of society in a systematic manner, just like how you study natural science. So initially, you can consider it was an attempt to visualize the social world by using intellectual parameters employed by natural science. That was the approach. So it actually aimed to understand the social world as a sequence of cause and effect relationship between the object that one can observe. So from that line, what you understood, object, what you can observe means it's an external reality that you're focusing on. Establishment of cause and effect is again very important. Now, if you see this as a theoretical perspective, positivism is guided by three interrelated ideologies. What are they? Empiricism, naturalism, inductivism. So the core of positivism is based on these three: empirical reality, naturalism, that means it consider material reality as supreme and the basis of social world, and then inductivism. The true knowledge is one which is induced from observable facts. So what do you mean by inductive approach? Inductive approach means the normal method of theory building in science, right? You collect data, interpret data, make the analysis, then come with a generalization and the theory, and which is testable also. That process you need to follow. Okay, so if you see empiricism, naturalism, and inductivism, and these three ideologies inspired the initial sociologist to think of a social world as empirical and capable of being reduced to universal laws, which is based on cause and effect relationship. So initial sociologists, they wanted to make universal law, okay, universal theories, which is based on cause and effect relationship by employing the parameters which is used in science. And in sociology, if you see, positivism first came through French tradition, borrowing heavily from philosophy. August Comte introduced sociological positivism. So there is a small difference between when we talk about positivism and when we talk about sociological positivism. That is what we need to make it clear again. So sociological positivism, in fact, emerged as a deviation from pre-existing perspective. For example, when we talk about the early sociologists, they were neither purely empiricist nor purely inductivist. But the exact positivism, when we talk about, it is purely empirical, purely inductivism. That's the approach. But when we talk about the early sociologists, because in fact in sociology it is not possible, right? That I already discussed when we talked about objectivity and value neutrality, the limitation of being purely empirical and purely inductive approach I have discussed already. Now, see, if you talk about again initial sociologists, we can talk about Saint Simon, that I have discussed again when we talked about emergence. I told you that positivism or his approach, he wanted to make science of society which is similar to natural science like physics. Again, Auguste Comte framed the basic assumptions of sociological positivism, and according to him, true knowledge is based on thinking about a physical and social world as a system of causal relationship between realities that we can directly or indirectly observe. Now, see here. Earlier, when we talked about positivism, we were talking about the things which can be directly observed. Here, Comte is talking about universal theory, establishment of cause and effect relationship of realities that can be directly or indirectly observed. So indirect observation is also there. Okay, so it's very different. That's what I'm talking about. It's very different from arguing that we can derive knowledge from direct observation only. In fact, Comte write that the search for laws uses reason as well as observation. So it's neither purely inductivist nor empiricist. And it aims at understanding the world as a sequence of cause and effect. That's the key point. So you need to focus on universal theories. You need to establish cause and effect. You need to use scientific methods. You need to establish universal theories. These are the key elements. So what I can do is I can list down the elements also. Okay, now if you see according to Comte, sociology is the again a science which aims to make universal laws. So that's the initial approach, and that who is the initial positivist you can say. But when we talk about positivism, again, you can talk about the role of Durkheim and to an extent Marx also. If you see, Marxian approach is also a kind of positivist approach only. Okay, so you can say positivism was further enriched by Durkheim and to an extent Karl Marx also. And Durkheim, in fact, exhibited the use of scientific methods as an integral aspect of positivist understanding. So, guys, I just want to repeat the same. Now you need to talk about so whatever we have discussed so far, from this hardly you need 30, 40 words to write the introduction. So from this discussion that we had, will you be able to take that 30, 40 words? Yes. Now we need to come to the main aspect, the core of this topic. That's the element of positivism. See, scientific study of society should be confined to collecting information about phenomena that can be objectively observed and classified. So you need to be in a position to observe the phenomena and you need to be in a position to classify the phenomena. That means positivism emphasis on study of external realities. That's the first point. Positivism, the elements of positivism. You can give a title or this is how you can write that. So when we talk about the elements of positivism, it's about study of external reality. And Comte argued for, that sociologists should never be concerned about internal meanings, motives, feelings, etc. of the individual. But this is what we give importance when we talk about Weber or when we talk about non-positivist later. So what is the limitation here is you're saying that you focus on external realities. You are ignoring the internal aspect. That's a limitation. I'll talk about that in the criticism. Okay, again, positivists focus on use of scientific methods in sociology. So the initial positivist, in fact, stressed on the use of methods similar to natural science. But when it comes to the later positivist, they developed methods particularly useful for sociology. So initially, they used directly the methods from natural science, but then we developed methods for sociology specifically. For example, you see the study of suicide by Durkheim. What he did, he used statistical method. What is that? It is directly taken from natural science, right? But later, his writing, the theory of religion, he used comparative method, which was specifically devised for social science. Again, you need to mention this point. Similarly, Weber also developed scientific methods which are specific to sociology, but Weber is not a positivist. Weber is not a non-positivist also. I told you before, he's considered to have bridged the gap between two. There are elements from positivism, there are elements from non-positivism also. The element from positivism is that Weber also stressed on establishment of cause and effect. Non-positivism is that Weber give importance to internal aspect. Okay, we'll come to that. Now the next element. So what we discussed, we already talked about two: external reality, use of scientific methods. Third is establishment of cause and effect relationship. See, again, positivism involves looking for correlation. That is between the observable facts, and that should lead to theories. Okay, and that should be universally applicable. So establish cause and effect. That means there are observable facts, and you need to make a correlation by using cause and effect. If there is something which is existing, there will be a cause. That's the idea. If I am healthy, there is a cause. If I am rich, there is a cause. If I am poor, there is a cause. If I am unhealthy, there is a cause. For everything, there is a cause. Okay, and you need to be in a position to find the correlation. You need to establish the cause and effect, and you need to make a universal theory or theory which is universally applicable, and it should be based on the inductive approach. So they prefer the inductive theories. Positivism emphasis again not only on explanation but also on prediction. The universal laws that are so devised not only help in understanding or discovering the situation, but also it will help the understanding of future course of society. And again it argue for testing, because the scientific knowledge is always testable, right? Something which is always testable. The true knowledge is something which is always testable. So that's what they focus on. So elements, I repeat, they study external reality, they focus on scientific methods, they focus on establishment of cause and effect universal based on universal theories, and it should be inductive theories, and it should be testable, and you should be in a position to predict, and entire research should be based on objectivity. There should be complete value neutrality or value freedom in the research. Okay. So that's about the elements of positivism. Now coming to the critical analysis part. See, that's again very important, guys. We need to now talk about the criticism, because that led to the development of non-positivism. So here, let's talk about the other side now, the flip side. Okay. So let's go to the critical analysis, the criticism. So how will you write this? Talk about positivism, then talk about its positives, and then come to the criticism, right? So there is a formula that you follow. CCR. Whenever you go for a critical analysis, C is the contribution. After talking about the theory or the relevant aspect, contribution. So we'll talk about contribution now. Then C, criticism. Then R. That's how you'll conclude. That's relevance. So remember CCR. So positivism, how can I talk about the contribution? Let me talk about the contribution. Positivism is still considered as a perspective which provided that initial motivation for establishment of sociology as a distinct discipline. Yes, one line of contribution is there. Now, the emphasis on theory building and objectivity provided that much required legitimacy to the discipline in that initial phase. Thus, positivism, in fact, made sociology more reliable and all those things you can say here. So that's enough for, talking about the contribution. Then you can say, by the after time passes, there are a lot of criticisms, objections were raised because of the use of scientific methods in sociology, establishment of cause and effect, studying only external reality, focusing on objectivity. Is that possible when you're studying human beings? Is the future prediction is possible? So all these were the objections. So you can take point by point that we discussed, and you can criticize. So let's start with the first point. You focus on studying external reality. So how can you criticize? See, when you're focusing on external reality only, you're focusing on society only. You are ignoring the individual. Individuals, meanings, motives, those internal aspects play a very important role. So you're ignoring that. Correct? And then that is one thing. So then again, use of scientific methods that you need to criticize, right? So first thing, when you focus on external reality, you are having a partial understanding that you can write. So how will I proceed now? Gradually, it was acknowledged that instead of using inductive approach, deductive approach is more suitable in sociology. And you can also talk about Karl Popper. So he highlighted in his book the logic of scientific discovery, the scientific factor of deductive approach. And according to him, there is no contradiction between positivism and deductivism. You can use deductive approach also. So the stress on inductive approach is not necessarily required. Then coming to that external aspect, I told you, you can write like this: positivism is considered by few as a fundamental misunderstanding of social reality. See, sociology deal with human beings, and the study of human consciousness or meanings are essential in understanding the complete reality. If you're ignoring that, then you have a partial understanding. That means it's a misunderstanding of social reality. So their emphasis on external aspect can be considered as or understood as a partial understanding of reality. For example, you can talk about non-positivism. They give emphasis on meanings, motives, emotions of individual, like that. Now, next is the overemphasis on universalism has led this approach being practically inapplicable. So various theories which are developed by positivists, they claim to be universal, but it was not proved the same in reality. Comte's laws of social organization suffered large number of logical problems and later resulted in its rejection also. And when you talk about testability, it's not possible in sociology. Prediction, not possible in sociology. Absolute objectivity, it's neither desirable nor possible in sociology. Why? You're dealing with human beings studying human being. So complete objectivity is not possible. Okay. So these are what you can write as criticisms in positivism. So I hope this is very clear. So this is how you can complete your answer. So talk about the emergence, and then talk about the initial approach, then talk about what is positivism, what is sociological positivism, the elements of positivism, and the critical aspect of positivism. And then you briefly mention about Weber brought up some new idea that we will be discussing in the next topic that you need to add here. And then you also need to talk about pure non-positivism like ethnomethodology, phenomenology, etc. Right? So that's about this session, guys. Thank you so much. If you're looking for sociology mentorship, or you are looking for sociology classes, I give you the details in the description. You can consider subscribing that also. See you in the next video.